The Beatles were not an exception to the rule that all musicians, regardless of how large or tiny they are, have their own influences. It was clear that Harrison's enthusiasm for other performers remained unwavering throughout his whole career. Recently, Ritchie Blackmore, a former guitarist for Deep Purple, remembered the time in 1984 when Harrison timidly sought to jam with the band. Harrison's request was made in vain. The two of them performed a rendition of a Little Richard song for an audience in Australia, with Harrison being so immersed in the experience that he was oblivious to the fact that Blackmore was hitting the wrong key. With all due respect, the Fab Four are considered to be pioneers, yet there was a time when the Liverpudlians were the ones who were being looked up to them. Buddy Holly was the best musical artist in George Harrison's eyes. Holly's band, the Crickets, served as a source of inspiration for John Lennon and Stuart Sutcliffe, who were the founding bassists of the Beatles music group. The early songs of John Lennon and Paul McCartney would borrow inspiration from his songwriting technique in the same way. However, Harrison, who was the lead guitarist for the band, was the one who picked up on Holly's impact in his playing the most. Harrison remembered his attempt to learn how to play the guitar with the assistance of a book that consisted of only a few pages. A few months or a year later, I discovered that those idiots had provided me with a handbook that did not take into account all of the notes. Harrison demonstrated that his enthusiasm for Holly's music had not lessened from the time he gave an interview to Guitar Player 13 years later, which was published in the November 1987 issue of the magazine. The emotional volume-swelling chords that were featured on the Beatles' 1965 compositions Yes It Is, Wait and I Need You were an example of his work, as he explained to the contributing writer Dan Fort. When Holly was working on his hit song Peggy Sue in 1957, he had done something very similar. Holly, who was unable to flick his pickup switch in time for his solo, instructed Cricket's guitarist Nicky Sullivan to shift the switch from the neck position to the bridge position and back again at the necessary junctures while he was playing his solo.